All right, today we have a computer that is super clogged with dust and it needs to be cleaned up. We're going to open this up and we are going to clean it out. So let's get started. Okay, first thing we need to do is take the side panel off to get this thing cleaned up. On this particular computer, I have thumb screws on the main side panel. So what you want to do, if you're going to be doing this at home, your computer has a main side panel where you have access to the parts inside. The back side panel is the one that has the motherboard beside it. So when you've got this part, your motherboard is right beside this. There's not going to be a whole lot behind here. We can still pop that off and clean it if we want, but the majority of the dust is going to be on the other side here. That's where, obviously around this fan, there's some other fans we'll take a look at here coming up. This will allow us to get access to the CPU fan and some of the other stuff in there. So let's pop it off. I don't have these very tight. These are just thumb tight to make it easier to pop the side panel off. Let's take a look and see how filthy this is inside here. Well, that CPU is just filled. That CPU is just filled with dust. That is going to result in a slow computer. GPU definitely has a lot of dust in it too. And so let's get this cleaned up. It's been far too long since this computer has been cleaned up. Alright, so I'm going to be using an air compressor today. I've got access to an air compressor. If you have access to an air compressor, that's going to work great. As long as you don't have the pressure too high on it, you should be fine. Well, here's the chuck. But the air compressor I'm using does get pretty high, so I've got to be extra careful. Now, if you don't have access to an air compressor, you can use cans of compressed air. You can buy those at any electronics store. You can buy that at an office supply store. A lot of those will have compressed air. So let's get started here. Now, one thing you need to be careful of is not overspinning your fans. If you hit your fans with this pressure, it can overspin them and actually cause problems. An air compressor is going to have a lot more pressure than compressed air. I'm actually standing a little bit back. Let's take a look at this on the bottom too. This case comes with a filter on the bottom, so we can take that filter off and clean it. Now you also want to make sure you get the CPU fan good and clean, and you see here it's got just tons of dust in it. I've already cleaned out some of the dust. It was the case that all of it looked like this, but you can see the fins now over here. But again, if you're pushing a lot of pressure through this, you want to make sure you don't hit the fans with a ton of air that spins them and it over RPMs them. So let's see if we can do that here. So we're looking at this PC and it is all clean. We've got all the how shiny that board is now. Got the CPU nice and clean. There's a little bit of residue here on the fan. That's not a big deal. That's going to be cooling the way it needs to again. And as dirty as it was starting to struggle quite a bit. When there was a load on the PC, it just was not getting as much cooling, so it was probably throttling with that much dirt in it. And here's the fan from this side. Looks nice and clean. Looks pretty good. You know, your PC is kind of just a big air filter that's just running all the time that it's running. It's filtering the air for you, but it looks nice and clean now. We're going to button this back up, start using it again, and see how much cooler it is. Alright, thanks.